is Nigeria Info
to use to disseminate. So they were similar. It was not move out of journalism. It was that I was processing a different. It became like a content provider for the media. And once you have in the media, you know how the media thinks, you know want, and you know when they want it, and you provide it. So that's what I did in government.
And the point of your role during the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari positioned you in public eye, not just to manage, but to defend information. You come to defend nation. Some you categorize the news, some you categorize as in other instances, you said just things people imagine, the blues. But we didn't, sometimes it was really very originating information that did come from the president, directly from the president on things. And when that did happen, people often felt, the former president was no man in a way that he didn't speak as a leader of nations. He spoke his mind as he wanted to. How did you manage that?
Well, my defense of that was that, and it still remains, that style, idiosyncratic. What does that mean? Style differs from person to person. The fact that one person adopts this style, you have the style of President Trump, where he will tweet, where he will speak. And he was like his own image maker. And it became even productive for him. But you had a Muhammadu Buhari who was a very reticent person. And he had his spokespersons who for him, as long as anything major you cross-checked with him, and they say, this is my opinion on it. Once you have that, you speak on it because that's what you had signed up to do. Unless it was a critical set, that should be enough for them. I recall during the COVID lockdown, they made 3 national broadcasts in 1 month. And then I was in your station. Yes. And then somebody called me and said, President, speak to us. He must speak to us. He must speak to us. 3 broadcasts in a month, and he hasn't spoken. You know, that's the kind of thing, perception people have. He hasn't spoken. He must go to Twitter, he must go to, he must gratis and all that. No, not everybody uses that.
Your book, you had the book launch yesterday, and yes. I accurate about this. Working with Buhari, Reflections of a Special Advisor, Media 2015 to 20, Femi Adesina. And there was also the Muhammadu Buhari, the Nigerian Legacy, 2015 to 23, as edited by Udu Yakubu. Those are 2 books, if I'm accurate about this.
Exactly.
Let's reflect on your views on some of the, what was the content? What did you document?
Well, having worked with President Buhari for years, and I dare say as the longest time advisor on media has spent in this democracy. There's no special advisor on media who has stayed the 2 terms with Siba. In fact, there was a president with 3 media advisors within 8 years. So others, maybe others 3 years, others 4 years. Nobody has spent 8 years. So that's that I was with President Buhari for 8 years means that I got to know him very well, very well. So having had the opportunity to know, and should be able to tell people this is the true Muhammadu.
So does that mean the one, you said the true Muhammadu Buhari, does that mean that the one that gets to know about and build up narrative about is not accurate?
The myths are not very correct.
Which of them was very profoundly
a lot. The fact that the nepotist, wrong. When you see the fact he is a dictator, wrong. He has become a Democrat. At the point they even said it was Jubril of Sin and not the real Buhari, wrong. Just the book address.
That the book address. The fact he was indecisive and he used very few words to communicate decisiveness, especially on insecurity. He appeared to really resist to fire people or to heighten kind of people or to take on surgeons. And you have been in a lot of meetings, and I believe not everything they classified now, especially on security, may not be able to speak extensively for operational reasons that they may still grant. But I would want you to attempt to help us understand the thing behind former President Muhammadu Buhari on certain decisions, including from the school feeding program, which one way seems to spin up, including things, loan borrowing, which seems to be some of the reasons why Nigeria says we have means of livelihood and other things taken away by the man who described himself as a reformed Democrat?
Well, you have loaded many things in that question, so we need to isolate them one by one. The fourth I'd like to take out is why he doesn't fire people. President Buhari was a very compassionate man. People don't know. A lot of the wrong narratives Nigerians imbibed about him was a wicked person, was uncaring, unfeeling. Not true. When he got to office in May 2015, the service chiefs he inherited, he kept them for about 3-4 months. It was in August that he replaced them. On the day he decided to leave, he called me, gave me a small sheet, said, I've decided to let the service go. These are the new people. And he gave me that paper. And he told me, don't yet announce tomorrow. I said, why, President? He said, it's not good that a man leaves his house in the morning going to work. Then he goes back home, sacked, and his family get it on the radio, on the television. I want them to go home and be that will tell their families that this. I said, Mr. President, this thing can be kept under wraps till tomorrow. He said, you have not been sacked, that's why you are talking like that. Me, I have been sacked, referring to when he was removed. I said, I have been sacked, I know how it feels. That's why I want these people to get home and be the one the news to their family. That is much of empathy President can show. Nigerians don't know it, but in that book, they will get to read and many other instances where empathy to people.
So empathy now in relation to the nation, especially with loss of lives from insecurity, I thought was quite about that. And in fact, in another phrasing of it would be uninformed.
Well, the thing I also need to say here, President should move to Maiduguri, which was the epicenter of insurgency there. And I tell you, President Buhari fought that insecurity to the last. When he, in 2015, recalled bombs used to go off 5-6 times in a day in the country. When he left, May last year, you didn't have bombs like that, firecrackers. So people who say he didn't fight insecurity should recall what was when he came.
It was also the president that had the highest number of people taken captive under his administration.
And then when you talk of people who were captive, you don't recall the number of people who were covered. The Dapchi girls, for instance, were taken within 5 days. They were recovered, except Leah Sharif, maybe 2 or 3 others. You don't recall thousands of people are rescued from Boko Haram captivity. You don't recall of the girls that have come back. So we have the penchant to just talk the negative side of things. No, there are lots of positives. Pattern insecurity, but you need to understand that insecurity variegated. When it came, it was mainly insurgency, as represented by Boko Haram. Later, kidnapping for women. Later, banditry came in. Later, a lot of things. And you then ask yourself, how can a country fight?
And no, you've mentioned like he's passionate, and one of the passion that many people recall that he created the Interior Ministry. Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster, the ministry in charge. And I want to strongly believe that the intention behind that was for a population that he hoped to take out of poverty. I mean, he talked about how the millions he hoped to take out of poverty. And probably you touch on this in the book. It's compassionate side and is to use welfareism, that means to salvage people from a situation that around the world, the global closed down. So that what was the concept behind interior side, especially for the nation leading?
Yes, you have it in that book. The title of that chapter is Buhari's Kind of Kindness. That's where I spoke about what he intended for the poor, the deprived, the underprivileged. That's why that ministry was created. And his intention was to touch the lives of people who have had one. That ministry called a humanitarian and poverty alleviation and disaster management. So he just wanted to touch the lives of people who had some negative things happening to them one way or the other. So that was the intention. I know easily you will talk about the minister that was in charge of answering questions before action agencies. Yes, anybody that served in government must be ready to account for how he or she superintended over resources given to him or her. And you have been called to answer questions doesn't mean that you have become guilty. English law is law, as they say. Anybody that is asked to answer questions must still have his or her day in court. And that person remains it until the court finds him or her guilty.
And I'm thinking about the Nigerian side. I'm thinking about the period launch of rice in Abuja at some point. There was, it was bags and bags on the outside, helicopter shot, but when taken to its collector form, you and Woods also framing up bags are kept, and almost everybody at some point in time, whatsoever measure was given, will get to us. The president strongly at some point convinced that he was able to get across with the people. Do you think his ministers failed him?
Well, out of every 12, there can always a Judas. Definitively.
Was there anyone?
Well, that's why I say I can say definitively that there was any Judas. But out of every, there can be a Judas. But left to President Buhari, he assembled it that he believed could translate his vision into reality. And he worked with those ministers. They have acquitted themselves, left to them and to history judge.
Let's talk about communication strategy, and because it's exactly what the book is framed on, and introduction with President Muhammadu Buhari as well. You traveled around the world with him,
yes, and
a lot sometimes found it quite challenging to understand, verbal usage, because Baba is generally easy spoken, and people often wondered if there was so much, the outness that is required of a speaker, to use some level of force to come and convince people. Did you see that at any point in time, communicating, maybe even coaching, on speaking to a Nigerian who could be very loud, if I may say? You are.
You are if you are of the quiet, the reticent, or even the task type, you can't help it. It is the people who must get to understand such a. It is not the leader that must now bear to breaking point to now satisfy. The people must show understanding. They must show for the leaders. But there is that you don't have to necessarily entrust your tools into the hands of the man who talks mostly. He can be full of talk.
He can be full of All right, let's go on in 30 seconds. And in 3 minutes, we can now like to take your views on some of the things and your questions as well. Right here on Ms. Far with Femi Live.
I love my job as an HR manager, but I also love
Nothing breaks the news like the news. Trust me, I can prove it. I do it every morning on Morning Crossfire from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Nigeria Info 95.1 and FD Amelie. Try the biggest conversation around national politics in a way that is full of passion and yes, covers biggest politics and the stories that matter to you. See, you have all the reasons to find out what's going on in Nigeria and be a bit differently. Let's talk. That's the way to go, even morning.
This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info. Audio.
This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
This is Nigeria Info. Talk.
All right, welcome back to the show this very morning. Right here on Nigeria, you have Adesina here with us today, the former aide to the president, former president. I don't know why I'm using former to introduce former president Muhammadu Buhari. He has been a past spokesperson essentially for the presidency, and he has released a book. Quite a reader, I would tell you. Touches a number of things in that book. So I would jump into the next question, which essentially, what do you intend to achieve with this book? Because there's bound to be contradictions to your account, and some of the people who are maybe talked about in relation to the president, they feel uncomfortable, maybe investigated, if I would say.
Well, what I have to say is that anybody that lays his hands on that book after dealing on Tuesday next week, the first thing I'll urge you to do is read the preface. When you read the preface, you'll find out what the book is about, what it is not about. I said in the preface, the book is not about the hardware of government, economic policy, monetary, foreign policy, and all this. Not about that. Rather, it's about the software of government, software of it, not the hardware of President Buhari. You find Buhari from the human perspective. You find him from the empathetic perspective. You find him from his outlook as a family man, as a Nigerian cares, as a patriot. You all those in the book. And then you now find his achievements also in the pages are dedicated to Nigeria, to Buhari's achievement sector by sector. You find it in that book. So it's a blend of hard and soft, more of soft than hard.
Let's talk about the soft. Strange as it sounds, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari was first to ever designate the women belong in the kitchen. Do you spin that?
He didn't date women. The question was specifically about his wife.
Okay.
So you can't say it's women. Every man has a right to mean what he wants for his wife.
Coincidentally, his wife is the first lady, or is the wife of the president? Because I know that was also...
yes, she started out as wife of the president, but later it was first lady.
Okay. So was it first lady was now the kitchen? Is that what that means?
You may need to meet President Buhari to speak about
Finally, I got this spin doctor to a corner. I got to the corner.
Because having issues at times are limits.
You're just instead of this communication. You really need to get yourself out of the game. Vitally is from Lugbe's axis. Femi, your guest. Why is Boston Ensure was freed alongside with other abductees?
Well, if I made... it would have been good if Leah Sharibu was freed with the others. It would not only bring her to her family, but to the entire country. Efforts were made, and that efforts should still continue until that young lady comes back.
Let me see Monday from Marabad. He says, you can imagine how defending the principal that didn't do. Nigerians are not full. You need to work on that. If you want to sell it, we're no longer interested in the not the best promises. Nigeria shall be great again. That's right.
Well, he has a right to his opinion. And I think if he buys the book, it's just one copy he will buy. If he doesn't buy that copy, he may not be missed.
Well, that's something to remember.